I think that we learned, obviously, how important Steph is, but they got beaten 4 straight games. That shows what the rest of this roster is without Steph, how important he is, how big of a Jenga piece he has become. But also, it's a reflection of the state of the rest of this team, of the lack of depth with this group. Well, there is no way, no easy way to end a season. And unfortunately, it feels like every time it comes to a skidding halt, and obviously with injuries playing a huge factor in the series, the Warriors, without their best player, fall 4 straight games, concluded by tonight's 121-110 loss at the Target Center in Minnesota. And the Warriors season, it is over. We are obviously going to talk about this game. We are going to break down this series, this postseason run, which did feature a series victory for the Warriors. We're going to talk about this season, potentially where it goes. Everything is on the table for you. And I thought that this was a game tonight where the Warriors, they showed fight. And really in this series, I thought they showed fight, most notably in Game 3 at home. But ultimately, talent won out. And tonight, we saw the gap. The Wolves had the 2 best players on the floor. The Warriors' best players were probably their young guys tonight in Game 5. The veterans got worn down. Jimmy Butler looked hobbled, hampered, less than 100%, not aggressive, and even when he tried to be, wasn't really able to do much. Draymond Green certainly had a better game than he had over the previous 2, but not effective enough. And when they're missing Batman, when the Warriors are missing their best player, I think that this is the eye-opening moment. A lot of us, or fans, pundits, analysts, kind of came to the conclusion of, this is not Warriors basketball without Steph Curry. And I thought that it was evident right from the start of this basketball game. Jimmy Butler's not the same without Steph. Draymond's not the same without Steph. Steve Kerr is not the same without Steph Curry. I thought that Coach Kerr, much like the Golden State Warriors, is kind of representative, ran out of answers. They expended all measures. He played 12 guys tonight. Saw multiple stints from back end of roster players. At this point, I was with you last after Game 2. That experiment, it pretty much looked futile. I wouldn't say useless or foolhardy or irrelevant, just futile. That's a Minnesota Timberwolves team that is damn good. And the Warriors might have been able to get them with Steph, but it was going to be a good series. That's a really talented team that has just made its 2nd consecutive Western Conference Finals and is looking to make that next jump to get to their first finals together. You got to tip your cap to Minnesota, who just beat you in 4 straight games the moment your best player went down. And obviously the Warriors beat them over the course of the final 3 quarters in Game 1. But it just goes to show, the question is, what is basketball without Steph? What's Shaggy without Scooby? What's Tom without Jerry? What's Woody without Buzz Light? There is no Warriors basketball without Steph, and I think that both this game as well as the Final 4 illustrated that to an unfortunate perfection. I mean, you saw that the Warriors were not able to get much done without Curry, and yes, they made runs in this game. I thought they played hard. Podziemski, Kuminga, Moses Moody down the stretch. Really the 3 young core players that have been kind of propped up. One has been paid by Golden State. One will be a restricted free agent this summer. Another has been labeled untouchable at times. And we can get into all of this down the line. But the point is, those 3 guys had their best game of the series outside of Kuminga's 30 points in Game 3. And I thought they finished the season about as strong as you could hope for. But obviously, they're still at a very infant stage of their career. This was the first time all 3 of those players, most notably Podziemski and Moody, and then finally Moody fell out of favor, were asked to play bigger roles than they looked prepared for. And tonight, I thought, was really the first time all 3 of them put this together. Pods led the way with 28 tonight. Kuminga had 24 off the bench. Moody was a big reason why they ended up cutting this lead at one point in the 4th quarter to 7 points before Minnesota, like they have to their credit this entire series, responded. This happened in the first half as well. A second quarter surge by Minnesota, a 17-5 run going into the half. That made it once a relatively attainable game. Eventually at the break, a 15-point Minnesota lead. And at one point it got up to 21 points heading into the 4th quarter. The Warriors didn't roll over, but they just did not have enough firepower. And we learned from the young players that we saw progress, not enough without Steph Curry to make this a Final Four group. Now, the question is, moving forward, can that be a springboard this summer into that kind of roster conversation for next year? What do we learn about our veterans in this game, in this series? Curry's going to be 38 next season. Draymond's going to turn 36. Jimmy Butler the same. I thought Jimmy Butler lacked aggression tonight. I thought he did not look like the player that was advertised as playoff Jimmy. And a lot of it, yes, is because he hurt his tailbone in game 2 of the first round series. And he wasn't able to summon that player that really carried them, I thought, from the very end of the regular season, really all the way through that play-in game, which the statistics don't count. But he had 38 points in a play-in victory against Memphis that secured them the 7th seed and got them into the playoffs. We hadn't seen that Jimmy Butler really since after game 1 of that series. Yes, he played well in game 3. That was enough for him to summon. He had a couple of 20-point performances in the Houston as well as Minnesota series, but overall did not have enough when Batman went down. Robin was not there to uplift the best player on this team. And Draymond Green, I thought over the course of this series, looked like the inferior player to the man opposite him. Julius Randle was a dog in this postseason series. And I thought out of all the players that were coming in, we're looking at, of course, health assumed, that was going to be the X factor, the swing factor. Because he was great against Los Angeles. And the question was, after a couple of duds with the New York Knicks, felt injured, they were better without him last year. They traded for, how was he going to play? He was damn good in this series, and he got the better of Draymond Green, who, again, is not going to be getting any younger. So the question becomes for your veterans, how can they maintain the level of play that they admirably displayed throughout the end of the regular season as well as the playoffs? A team that won 27 of 35 games when Steph and Jimmy were on the floor, postseason included. And can they win this marathon that is the NBA season and the playoffs at their elder age? You know, the Warriors, they need to find some sort of middle ground, much like America. A little more of a middle class. We got really old, great players, and we got some promising young pups who we're not really too sure about, who are a bit too inconsistent. Even throughout this game, you saw inconsistency from Podziemski, from Kuminga, from even Moses Moody. All of that is something that has to be a bit more reliable moving forward. And so, again, there is a ton on the table that we have to dig into, both from this game as well as this series and, of course, this entire season. But finding a balance for the Golden State Warriors, is it as simple as Steph Curry returning? I think it might run a little bit deeper than that. I think that we learned, obviously, how important Steph is, but they got beaten 4 straight games. That shows what the rest of this roster is without Steph, how important he is, how big of a Jenga piece he has become. But also, it's a reflection of the state of the rest of this team, of the lack of depth with this group. They are all in on Steph Curry. They are all in on him. When he left, this thing crumbled. The Warriors team could not win a basketball game without him. Now, I know, all in, what does it look like? Second apron, it looks like, I don't know, maybe you're throwing cash, you're trying to make a trade this summer, you're trying to go get another big boy. Yes, there are literal moves you could make that would, I think, signal to people that you're all in. Maybe expending all your future first-round picks. There's capital that you can use to go out and perhaps upgrade this roster. I'm not sure. But in the literal sense, like, they are all in on him. This is what it's all about. There is not a player in the NBA, and this is what I think we clearly learned over these last 4 games in which the Warriors were only really close in one of them, that there isn't a player who means more to their franchise than Steph Curry. He is the sun, and without it, the Warriors are a very dim solar system. That's what we've learned. Again, Draymond needs Curry. Jimmy Butler needs Curry. Both players I thought were relatively ineffectual without him. Draymond on offense, Jimmy Butler at times on offense. He just did not have it. And obviously Steve Kerr needs Steph Curry. There's a reason why Steve Kerr had to experiment, had to literally throw a game away in game 2 just to figure out the next set of rotations, adjustments, how they were going to cope without their best player. It's because of Steph. I mean, the Warriors' recent valuation came out, I think it was a couple days ago. They're worth almost $9.5 billion. That's almost $2 billion more than the next highest valued franchise, which I believe is the Knicks. That's largely in part because of Steph Curry. And again, the caller also discussed some of the injuries in this playoff. You're right. Jason Tatum goes down. It's going to be tough for Boston. You know what? They won going away tonight. Boston won by 22 points. Injuries have happened over the course of this season, but there has not been a singularly more damning injury to a team than Steph missing these final 4 games. And I think that this was evidence of it. Steph Curry is everything to the Warriors. And we should have known that by now. You know, however you want to factor it into to where you rank them. I don't know if it's all time, if it's among players still. But at age 38, you could look at that and say, wow, Steph is incredibly great and he's everything for this team, and that is awesome. You could also look at it and say, wow, everything that we have in this basketball universe of Golden State is tethered to a player that's going to be 38 next year. So I do think they are all in on Steph. That's why they went on and got Jimmy Butler. And there's ramifications, and you know there's going to be consequences from that. I think Kuminga is certainly a conversation we can have. How the Warriors try and reassemble this roster to maybe complement a little bit better of what Butler does, or maybe honestly that the rest of this time that Curry has left, it's all about trying to figure out how to just get these guys through the regular season healthy. I mean, Curry played 70 games this year. He played a 7-game series against Houston. He averaged nearly 40 minutes per game during the postseason. All of that probably led to the physical taxation that eventually hit him with his first hamstring strain of his career. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of that happened. How did they get Steph to this point next season when he's going to be 38? That's a big question they have to answer, because I do think that they are all in on him, and they need to figure out, again, how to get him on the floor, because a lot of people believe that that's the difference between a win and loss in this series. I think that Minnesota, with how well that they played, and look, they weren't completely buttoned up even tonight. I mean, they were throwing the ball away. They were playing not to lose. They're letting the Warriors, the Santoses, the TJDs, the Posts, the Moody's, they were letting them get the Warriors back into the game. Even at times throughout the last couple of losses that the Warriors sustained, they've had opportunities. Maybe not to win, but the Timberwolves are not a team that right now at least appear to me to look like a championship group. Could they get to that level? Perhaps. And they're going to have to go through either Denver, OKC, who are damn good to prove it. But the Warriors, I think you could make the case that if they have Steph, they win this series. I think it still goes deep. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they win. But obviously, Steph creates an entirely different shift in this series.